What do you do when you feel like you have pressure coming from multiple sides and still manage to keep things moving forward and have a sense of feeling grounded at home? That's a tricky thing. That's what I want to talk about with you today as we continue learning principles from the book of Nehemiah. Welcome. I am Heidi Cooper, and this is the Biblical Planning for Women podcast, where we get right into the Bible to find principles to help us with managing our home, our time, our resources, and being good stewards of them. If you'd like more help with that, I have a biblical planning starter kit that is free for you to download. I'll have a link right in the description for you. I encourage you to take advantage of that. It's full of all kinds of things to help you out. So as we're looking at Nehemiah, we've learned so many things thus far about learning to pray before we plan, asking for advice and help from someone outside of ourselves, learning to delegate, even with games, if that's what works the best. There are so many principles. Well, today I'd like to pull some lessons from Nehemiah chapter 4. And again, if you have not read the book of Nehemiah, I encourage you to sit down and go ahead and read the whole story of Nehemiah. It's an incredible story. It's only 13 chapters, so it's not a super long read, but it's just an incredible story of how Nehemiah went back and helped rebuild the wall of Jerusalem and so many other things that happened around them building the wall. So today I'd like to read some from Nehemiah chapter 4, and I'd like to start reading in the print is so tiny, verse 15. And it says, "When our enemies heard that it was known to us and that God had frustrated their plan, we all returned to the wall, each to his work. From that day on, half of my servants worked on construction, and half held the spears, shields, bows, and coats of mail. And the leaders stood behind the whole house of Judah, who were building on the wall. Those who carried burdens were loaded in such a way that each labored on the work with one hand and held his weapon with the other. And each of the builders had his sword strapped at his side while he built. The man who sounded the trumpet was beside me, and I said to the nobles and to the officials and to the rest of the people, 'The work is great and widely spread, and we are separated on the wall far from one another. In the place where you hear the sound of the trumpet, rally to us there. Our God will fight for us.' So we labored at the work, and half of them held the spears from the break of dawn until the stars came out. I also said to the people at that time, 'Let every man and his servant pass the night within Jerusalem, that they may be a guard for us by night, and may labor by day.' So neither I nor my brothers nor my servants nor the men of the guard who followed me, none of us took off our clothes, each kept his weapons at his right hand." Now I just want you to picture that. They are all rebuilding the wall, and as we learned in a previous chapter, each one was building a section, and some of them was like right in front of their house, and they were all building simultaneously. And of course we learned that people did not want them rebuilding the wall, so they were opposing them. And here we have all of them working with a weapon in one hand and then building with the other. Excuse me. They were that devoted to the work. And I imagine they felt very torn with constantly feeling like they were going to be attacked, and also wanting to get this wall up because they knew that was a large part of where their protection came from. Obviously it came from Yah, but that wall was that physical barrier that was there to protect them. And it had been broken down, so I can imagine the stress and the pressure that they were feeling with fearing being attacked, where they were even setting up guards through the night and then trying to get this wall finished. I have not been under exactly that kind of pressure, but I do know what it's like to feel like you're being pulled in many different directions. Right now, in fact, I have I have two businesses that I run, one of which is a print shop. And then we are working on a big construction project, and my daughter is about to get married, so we're getting all ready for that. Plus all of the normal stuff on top of that. And I feel like I am chasing my tail. And what I think we can learn from Nehemiah here is sometimes we do kind of have to multitask. And we're told don't ever multitask, but sometimes if we do it right, it can actually help us. And I want to just give you some examples today of how to overlap things so that you're still moving forward on multiple fronts without feeling like when we're told multitasking is bad, when we're really not doing anything well. What I want to encourage you to do is not so much the multitasking where you've got 14 tabs is actually a small number for me on some days, open on your computer. Not where we're trying to do multiple jobs at the same time, but learning to overlap, getting one thing started and letting it run. So let me give you some examples of that. For example, so we're working on a construction project, but when we are taking a break in the house, maybe a lunch break, I can get my printers going on orders. I can get them going because they'll keep printing without me. So then I can go back to the construction job knowing that the printers are doing their work. I know that we needed to start collecting things to take to where the wedding's going to be. So while I'm doing a job outside, my kids were collecting the items that are going to need to be loaded in the car in a pile. They can be fetching those things. So those things can overlap. So I'm not actually trying to do two things at once. I'm keeping multiple things moving forward. Laundry is another thing that we can do. We can make sure we start with loading the washer, and then we can be tending to other tasks while the washer is running. See how that works? By being wise in overlapping tasks and starting one that can run on its own for a while we then do another one that needs our full attention, we can keep multiple fronts moving forward. And I'm sure you can think of some ideas in your situation where you could get one thing in motion, then switch gears, tend to something else, and then return to that first one. And like I said, laundry is a great example of that. We all understand how the washer's doing most of the work, and we can be tending to other things. Whereas if we're not taking a couple minutes to think through the timing of things, we can be doing these other things, and then, I need to put a load in the washer. We've not as wisely overlapped those tasks. Like Nehemiah they were ready to fight in one hand and they were building with the other. That's what we want to learn to do when we have things coming at us on multiple fronts. Like I was saying in my own life right now. So it takes a few minutes up front to kind of think through what actually needs to be happening, and then figure out what can be given to someone else to do, what can be set in motion while you're doing something else that needs your full attention. If you take a few minutes up front to plan those things out, it can really pay off at the other end. The other way that we can use this principle is by actually knowing how long a task takes to complete. If we know that preparing dinner is going to take us 15 minutes, for example, okay, we can be realistic about how much time we need to allow for it. There's also other tasks that I think we really overestimate how long it's going to take to sweep the floor, for example, and then we put it off thinking, well, I don't have time. Whereas if we know that it actually only takes 5 minutes, we can squeeze it in between other things and get it done. So those are two things that I'd like you to work on this week when you're feeling like things are coming at you, you're feeling pressure from multiple fronts. First, take a few minutes to see what tasks can be overlapped, like I was mentioning. And secondly, be more accurate in your estimation of how long a task takes so that you will mentally be quicker to step in and do these smaller jobs, because it actually only takes 5 minutes when you were making it much bigger in your mind. So these are two principles I want you to work on this week as we're journeying through the book of Nehemiah and learning to be good stewards of what we have been given. And even in these seasons where we feel overwhelmed, we can still stay reasonably on top of things by taking a few minutes to think things through and make a plan. I hope that will be helpful to you as you tackle what's coming at you this week. Just remember, do the next thing. Take small steps. Take a few minutes to think it through about how best to achieve what needs to get done. And I will see you next time. If you are listening on Apple or Spotify, I would love it if you would take a minute and give the podcast a review so that other women will be able to find it and know that this is a good place for them to be, to learn to be faithful women who are just stepping up and blessing the people around them. All right, I will see you next time.